I think everybody knows, but where all the candidates are running. But Nancy Boyda is running as a Democrat here in CD2, which I'd say here in CD2, Congressional District 2, which is Topeka, southeast Kansas, and
half of Kansas City, half of Wyandotte County.
We probably should have had a map out, but so you heard the opening question. Why did you decide to run again for Congress?
Right.
Wasn't once enough?
It's a good question. So I am so concerned about what is going on in our country. I don't care who you talk to, and I just say we have so much broken trust. We are so divided, and I don't care which side of the aisle people go, yes. And I believe my campaign slogan is the solutions are in the center. That's who I was when I was in Congress 18 years ago, 16 years ago. I was very much of a centrist, very much broke with my party, very visibly, did anything that I could to work with people. And quite honestly, is there anybody else in the 2nd District? I look around and go, is there anyone else? And there just wasn't. So that's why I'm doing this. I am that concerned about our country. And I didn't see anybody else being able. I call myself bilingual. I grew up in a very Republican household. So doing anything I can to get the right and the left to speak to each other. That's just what I've been about for 20 years.
Thank you for that. So again, some of the questions are the same. So let me just go back to the question I just asked about trade and your thoughts about tariffs and trade and what the Congress might be able to do to improve our ability to export and maybe import, but more importantly export, and the role of tariffs, good or bad?
Yeah, we'll talk tariffs first, if that's okay, because that's a little bit easier to talk about. So I have said with tariffs, we have the dollar tree. It's now the $1.25 tree. Right? If we keep on a bunch of tariffs, we're going to have the $1.50 tree. So I am not a fan of tariffs. Do they have places? Of course they do in certain very, very targeted areas. But I think we all know the devastation that the tariffs have brought on to our Kansas farmers. It has been devastating. And there's always an upside. Tariffs sound like they're a really good thing. It's a very populist message. But the fact is they are, who said earlier, they're a tax. And so I am not, I would take targeted tariffs, yes.
This is a question I haven't asked the others, but it's it's not a gotcha thing since you're a former member. So the Kansas delegation has 6 members, so we're a small state. Mm-hmm. How do you increase Kansas's influence? And I guess a follow-up to that, which I meant to ask earlier, but we run out of time, is the Congress doesn't seem to be very productive today.
Really?
So regardless of who's in power. Right. So maybe you tackle both of those. Like what can Kansas do to increase our influence with 6 members of a federal delegation?
Well, I would tell you that I know I'm idealistic. I know that. I am very idealistic. But we were talking at our table today, and what did I say tonight? If you all, God bless you all, if you all don't put pressure on the congressional delegation to get together and to work on behalf of Kansas, you are not doing your job. I will go to Congress, but it will be on my terms, Alan, and I want some things to change when I get there. This dysfunction is absolutely killing our country, not to mention that the distrust. So we all can do this. So we were just talking about that. I would love to say, how do we, Tracy, how do we work together? I think Kansans can lead the way, and that sounds like some stupid campaign slogan, right? Kansans can lead the way on bringing our country together. Tracy, I expect you to work with me. I expect you to work together, and very visibly, and it will cost you politically, and it will cost me. I will hold you all accountable for that when we're there. We have to do better. So we all know what happens when Congress doesn't get along. What happens? We have executive actions, right? Whoa. You know, everybody's got, their necks are completely out of shape because of all the whiplash. When Congress doesn't do its job, it's executive action on both sides, and it's just got to stop.
I think this is a question I think I've asked everybody, already losing track, the government debt deficit. Your thoughts about how best to solve it. How did we get there? Again, you were a member of Congress.
I was.
You voted for some of these budgets, but I don't know if you voted for all the budgets. But how do we get out of it, and how big of an issue and concern is it to you?
Okay. So the deficit is a huge concern to me. I was raised by very, very conservative parents who grew up in the Ozarks during the Depression. So waste not, want not is stuck across here, emblazoned. So I will say some things that may be uncomfortable, but in the previous administration, go look for yourselves. Please don't trust me. Our deficit spending was $8.4 trillion in those 4 years, including COVID. Including COVID with this, we're at about 4.5, maybe 4.7 by the time we're done. And I'm not suggesting that 4.7, which is a huge improvement, but both sides need to take some accountability here. So, and 4.7 is way too much. How do we do it? We watch how we tax and how we don't tax. Taxing is absolutely part of it. I love you all dearly, but our corporate tax rate is the lowest that has been in 80 years. And we want to take another 20% lower and then talk about the deficit. It just doesn't work for me. I would not have also, on the spending side, I would have said, why are we forgiving school loans? Why would we do that? Would we forgive school loans maybe for teachers, for public servants that we don't pay enough? Yeah, I talk about that. But I want to watch how we're spending, so it's both sides. But the fact is we have to get real about what's going on. It is our future. Everyone who has said that they're concerned about our future, I was raised to live within my means when I was growing up, and our country needs to do the same.
Looking at Eric, because I know we're getting close. 3.
Okay.
So probably.
Did that answer the question?
Well.
Okay. Yes.
This group decides, not me.
All right.
So rural Kansas has, there's plenty of bright spots in rural Kansas, but there's also some areas that are struggling.
Oh my heavens.
What federal policies do you think that you would support or could happen that would help some of the rural Kansas economies get a little bit better?
Before we get too far, I wanted to talk about housing. I've told Alan that I know when I come to the chamber, I've got one thing that I want to talk about: jobs. I'm a Democrat. We talk about jobs. Go look at the numbers, cut them any way that you want to. Democrats are going to be out there producing jobs, but right now we need housing, right? So when we come to rural Kansas, it costs you how much more? How much does it cost you to build a house? $300,000, $250,000? You can't sell it for that. So we're upside down on everything. I believe we are now at a deficit after the 2008 crisis. We lost so many of our builders, and then they did what the free market does. And they built housing that was more expensive. It's what they did. We need to invest up and down the district, in urban and in rural, to make sure that we have affordable, safe housing. We are in a crisis. We are at least hundreds of thousands of housing starts never happened since 2008. Hundreds of thousands. We're someplace between 3 and 5 million housing short, plus about 7 million rental units. That's what we need to do to bring jobs. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. No, timing is good because you finish it. You got 1 minute to answer why the Kansas business community and CD2 should vote for Nancy Boyda.
Right, because I have supported business. I was very much of a huge fan and worked together so much with the Kansas Bankers Association, with small banks. I was right there with the Kansas Pharmacy Association. Anything with the word community in there, I was right there. We do have now an independence in the district that wasn't in there. We have aircraft manufacturing now, and I'll be happy to work with them. I am very policy oriented. I work hard. I will listen to you and hear what you have to say, and then I will beg us all to get together with the entire delegation and say, how can we do this? How can we make business? We need to cut regulation. I get you on that. I hear you. I grew up in corporate America, and I hear you on that. And I will do everything I can not to add to that burden and to see how we can roll some of that back. First of all, we've got to stop all the executive orders. That means Congress has to do